So it's no secret that a lot of investors, especially long-term investors, are interested in investing into these Vanguard style ETFs that are for the most part super cheap to hold on to, and at least historically, a lot of these ETFs have offered investors massive wealth generation long-term. But with so many different products in the Vanguard list of all ETFs, especially for newer investors, it can be sort of confusing to know which ETF might be best for you. So in this video, I'm going to make it very simple. I'm going to share with you guys 5 of my personal favorite Vanguard style ETFs that offer either a massive amount of growth potential and or some nice dividend income from day one. Now, any of these ETFs, for the most part, that we're going to go through are good opportunities to invest into, especially for a long-term investor. But that, of course, is just based off of previous performance, which does not indicate future performance. Now, with all that being said, let's get into my first favorite Vanguard ETF right after you drop a like down below and subscribe. My A to Z dividend investing ebook has helped countless dividend investors get started with their journey. And my custom dividend tracker that I'm constantly using here on the channel has also helped so many investors stay on track and allow them to see their dividend income in real time. Well, today I have another treat for you guys. I'm not only going to offer you my A to Z dividend investing ebook and the custom dividend tracker, but also just for a short limited time, I'm going to be adding in my brand new weekly dividend blueprint ebook to show you how you can get started with weekly dividend ETFs and add this into your investing strategy. This offer is not going to last long, so go ahead and click the first link down below in my description, and you're going to get both ebooks and the custom dividend tracker bundle. But like I said, please act fast because this won't be around for long. Now let's get back into the video. Now the first of 5, one of my favorite Vanguard style ETFs that honestly is probably a good investment opportunity for any investor to have some exposure to, especially if you want to remain in the market for several years or even decades. I'm talking about the VIG ETF or the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. Now this ETF's product summary is very simple and straightforward. It invests in stocks of the S&P 500 index representing 500 of the largest US companies. The goal of this ETF is to closely track the index's return, which is considered a gauge of the overall US stock returns. This ETF offers high potential for investment growth, and shares can rise and fall more sharply than, of course, invest into bonds. Now, why is the VIG ETF a potential good opportunity for a long-term investor? Well, for one, it's well diversified with around 500 different stocks within the ETF, and it is the S&P 500, which overall has been very hard to outperform. I mean, since inception, this ETF has offered 623%, and this is total return. Since inception, this is back in September of 2010. Now, in some years, VIG has been up around 25-26%, some years even more than that. VIG also does pay a dividend. It pays around a 1.5% yield, but you are getting a little bit of cash flow. That's of course going to probably grow over the years too. So if you want to keep it super simple, VIG is a great opportunity that, as you can see right here on the max time frame, has been growing up and to the right significantly, basically every single year, more or less, with a few dips here and there historically. The next Vanguard ETF is one of my favorites personally, and this is because it offers a bit more dividend income, is VIG or the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF. Now this product summary says seeks to track the performance of the S&P US Dividend Growers Index, passively managed, full replication approach, remains fully invested, etc. Now here's the most important part of this ETF to me personally as a dividend investor. It says large cap equity, emphasizing stocks with a record of growing their dividends year over year. Now once again, like all the Vanguard ETFs, you're getting exposure to this ETF for 0.05%, some of the cheapest ETFs across the entire markets. And as we said, you are getting exposure to around 337 different stocks that have an emphasis of growing dividends over time. But also, just like VIG, the performance historically for VIG has also been outstanding, almost 500% return, and this is since inception back in 2006. Some years this ETF has been up almost, and some years this ETF has been up more or less, but overall this ETF, just like the other ones we're going to talk about, has been a massive wealth generator. Now the distributions for VIG are going to be a bit bigger than VIG. This ETF, of course, does have dividend right in its name. We're talking like a 2 to 3% yield, and we're talking like a 1.5% more or less yield that also has been growing over time, so you are going to see some dividend growth with this one also. Now, just like VIG historically in the max time frame, VIG has also grown. So even though it does have dividend appreciation index in its name, this is also a massive growth opportunity for long-term investors. The next ETF that's one of my favorites when it comes to the Vanguard ETFs is VYM or the Vanguard High Dividend Yield ETF. Again, for me personally, because I consider myself a dividend focused investor, some of these Vanguard ETFs that offer a little bit more dividend yield do more so match what I'm looking for. Now, VYM's product summary says seek to track the performance of the FTSE High Dividend Yield Index, which measures the investment return of common stocks of companies characterized by high dividend yields. Provides a convenient way to track the performance of stocks that are forecasted to have above average dividend yields. Now the yield for VYM, for example, is larger than both VOO and VIG at around 2.59% yield, so you are getting a bit more cash flow from day one with VYM. Just like the other ones, expense ratio is absolutely dirt cheap, 0.06% to hold on to. And as far as portfolio composition, you're getting around 500 different stocks within the ETF. So once again, just like VOO, you're getting so many names, so much diversification, and a ton of exposure to high quality stocks. Now, like I said, the distributions are larger when it comes to VYM, with a growing dividend on top of that, so you are going to be exposed to support cash flow. But again, just like the other ones on the max time frame, it's not all about cash flow. I mean, VYM has doubled, tripled, quadrupled over multiple time frames. This ETF is basically always trading towards all-time highs, just like a lot of the other Vanguard products. Now, the next Vanguard ETF is one of my favorites, especially to talk about in the context of newer investors. This is VTI, or the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. This ETF is extremely diversified because you guessed it, it is the total stock market. Now, the product summary for VTI seeks to track the performance of the CRSP US Total Market Index, large, mid, and small cap equity diversified across growth and value styles, employs a passively managed index sampling strategy, the firm is fully invested, etc., etc. Now, the thing I love about VTI is that with a click of the button, you can get exposed for a 0.03% expense ratio to so many different stocks. We're talking over 3,600 different individual stocks, which I get it can be a little bit overly diversified, but if you're a brand new investor and if you want exposure to the stock market, but don't necessarily know what to buy into yet, I think VTI is an amazing opportunity. Now, as far as performance goes, VTI has offered 670% return, and this is since 2001. Certain years, VTI hasn't necessarily performed as well as other ones of the Vanguard ETFs, and this is because, once again, maybe it's a bit overly diversified, but for a new investor that just wants to dip their toes in the market, I think VTI, the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index, is a perfect opportunity to have exposure to a ton of different names for a very cheap expense ratio. Now, looking at VTI's performance on the max time frame, just like the others, it's up 422%. This one has also grown significantly over almost every single time frame. So I repeat, especially if you're a relatively newer investor, take a look into VTI. You're definitely going to like it. Now, the last ETF that I think is one of the best when it comes from Vanguard that offers a boatload of growth potential is ticker symbol VGT, or the Vanguard Information Technology ETF. Now, this ETF's expense ratio is a bit more at 0.09%, but again, generally pretty cheap. Now, VGT is going to be much more of a growth ETF, and this is because the underlying holdings, it says right here in the product summary, seeks to track the performance of a benchmark index that measures the investment return of stocks in the information technology sector. It also says includes stocks of companies that serve the electronics and computer industries or that manufacture products based on the latest applied science. Now, in VGT, you're getting around 316 different stocks in your holdings, with again most of the names being in technology or hyper growth names, which can and will grow like crazy when the market is hot, but also the inverse when it's not. Now, the performance of VGT since inception, we're talking 1,357%, and this is since 2004, so this one once again is an absolute growth monster. But again, with so much emphasis on technology, this ETF can also lose value very quickly, so again, it depends on your investing strategy, your risk tolerance, etc., etc. So there we have it, guys. Those are 5 of my personal favorite Vanguard ETFs. Even though there's so many good ones out there, those are 5 of my personal favorites that always come to mind, especially when we're talking about Vanguard. Now, Vanguard ETFs are awesome because, like I said, most of them historically have performed amazing because the underlying strategies and the holdings, of course, but on top of that, they're very cheap to hold on to. But just one thing before you go, I want you guys to comment down below your #1 favorite Vanguard style ETF across the entire market. It can be dividend focused, it can be growth focused, or anything in between. Drop the ticker symbol down below in my comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.